All right, we're going to deconstruct the story of a song you probably think you know. It's a track that sounds like pure lightning in a bottle, right? A spontaneous explosion in a recording studio. But what if that spark was actually lit years and years before? Let's get into the real story behind the legend. So, picture this. It's Sun Records in Memphis. The story we've all heard is that a young Elvis is just kind of fooling around with his guitarist, Scotty Moore, and bassist Bill Black. And then, bam! They just stumble onto this new sound. It's raw, it's energetic, and it feels like the future just crashed the party ahead of schedule. And yeah, that's the story we all know. But what if we've only been hearing the last chapter of the book? In this explainer, we're going to pull back that curtain on the whole myth of individual genius to get at a story that's way more layered and honestly a lot more interesting. Now, let's be clear, there is absolutely no denying the impact of Elvis's version. To anyone listening to the radio in 1954, it would have sounded like it came from another planet. It had this incredible, controlled looseness, that feeling of being perfectly tight, but also like it could fly off the rails at any second. It was just so fresh, so urgent. It was the sound of something totally new being born. And just like that, the popular story gets cemented. That the song was a happy accident, a spontaneous moment of pure genius that pretty much single-handedly birthed rock and roll and gave a voice to an entire generation. And look, it's a great story. It's just not the whole story. So let's actually look at the song's true blueprint. Because here's the simple fact of the matter. That's All Right was not an Elvis Presley original. Not even close. The song already had an author, it had a history, and it had a completely different emotional core, long before that famous day at Sun Records. The man we really need to be talking about is Arthur Big Boy Crudup, a Mississippi bluesman. And get this, he wrote and recorded That's All Right almost a full decade before Elvis even touched it. That makes his recording what we call the source song. It's the original DNA, the blueprint that the more famous version was built from. And when you put these two versions side by side, wow, the transformation is just wild. Crudup's 1946 version is pure blues. It's grounded, it's sorrowful, you can feel the emotional weight. It's a musical statement about heartbreak. But then you get Elvis's version, and it's a rockabilly firecracker. The tempo's jacked up, the whole vibe is light, almost nonchalant. That emotional burden is gone, and it's replaced by what experts call a kinetic release, just pure energy. The song shifts from being a personal blues statement into a public social signal. But here's the thing. A great performance isn't enough to start a revolution. The song's success was powered by a whole system, a kind of breakthrough machine with key people in the right places who recognized, curated, and then amplified this crazy new sound. So this machine had three really clear stages. First, you have the performance itself, that unique, driving sound the trio made without even using drums. Second, you've got curation. That's producer Sam Phillips, who heard it and immediately knew it had crossover potential. And then stage three, the big one, amplification. A DJ named Dewey Phillips at the record threw it on the air and just played it again and again and again, turning a studio experiment into a citywide sensation basically overnight. This quote just nails the song's power. It wasn't about the lyrics, it was about the attitude, the posture. The singer isn't pleading with anyone or trying to explain himself. Nope, he's already moved on. The song literally transforms an emotional setback into forward motion, and that kinetic feeling is exactly what made it so electric. And that forward motion didn't just happen in the music, it was happening in the culture. To really understand this song's impact, we have to talk about the incredibly rigid racial boundaries of 1950s American radio. The key concept here is crossover. See, in the 50s, music genres were put in these really strict boxes. Country music was for white audiences. Blues and R&B were for black audiences. The lines were drawn super clearly. So for a song to jump over those lines, to cross over, was a really rare and powerful event. That's All Right was a sound without a category. People heard it and thought, what is this? Is it country? Is it R&B? That confusion was its secret weapon. In fact, DJ Dewey Phillips famously had to ask Elvis on the radio what high school he went to. It was a kind of code to signal to his Memphis audience that the singer was white. It was this classification lag, this moment before the industry could stick a label on it, that allowed the song to get out to everyone. And this brings us to the most difficult and probably the most important part of this whole story. It's where a moment of pure artistic brilliance collides with a long history of systemic injustice. So we need to understand this idea of the canon. The canon is basically the official story, right? It's the set of works that history decides are essential. But the problem with how the canon gets formed is that it usually shines a spotlight on the most famous, most amplified version of a song. And when that happens, the original source often just fades into the background. And the result of that was a huge economic divide. Arthur Crudup, the man who wrote the song, the originator, he received minimal royalties. For long stretches, he got nothing at all. Meanwhile, Elvis Presley, the performer and the adapter, received substantial rewards. And this wasn't just about one song. This was a pattern, a systemic problem across the entire music industry. So, the most important takeaway is this. We have to be able to hold two truths in our minds at once. The song was a brilliant recording that helped shake up social and racial boundaries. And at the very same time, its success was part of a system that reinforced deep economic inequality, leaving its Black creator behind. Both things can be true. And that leaves us with the big question. This isn't about choosing between brilliance and injustice or between celebration and critique. It's about understanding how they are all tangled up together. So, how do we honor a piece of art that truly changed the world, while also making sure we tell the full, true story of every single person who made it possible?